Masititsixada ke mawethu sibhekise kumongameli kwizakhiwo zomdibaniso ePitoli.
Our country was recovering from a deadly second wave of coronavirus infections. Then the number of daily infections had stabilized at a relatively low level, and we had placed the country on coronavirus alert level 1. While we continued to urge caution, the low levels of transmission allowed us to ease restrictions on the size of gatherings. Now, several months of low transmission, the number of infections has begun to rise sharply in several parts of the country. We've seen a sustained increase over the last 4 weeks. Over the last 7 days, we've seen an average of 3,745 daily new infections. This is an increase of 31% on the previous week and an increase of 66% on the week before that. The proportion of COVID-19 tests that are positive has more than doubled in the last month, from around 4% to more than 11%, even as we have increased testing across the country. We are advised by our experts that a positivity rate of over 5% is a cause for concern. The provinces of Free State, Northern Cape, Northwest and Gauteng have reached the threshold of a third wave of infections. It may only be a matter of time before the whole country will have entered a third wave. According to our health experts, the recent surge in new infections is due to the increasing number of social gatherings where people are not observing essential health protocols. As we know, these protocols include what we have often spoken about, which is the wearing of masks, social distancing, ensuring adequate ventilation, and limits on the number of people who attend gatherings. Other sides of increased transmission are funerals and so-called after-tears parties, as well as camps and sporting activities at schools. Because rates of infections have been low for some time, and because we are all suffering from pandemic fatigue, we have tended to become complacent. We have not been as vigilant about wearing our masks all the time. We have not been avoiding crowded places, and we have been socializing a lot more. As a result, infections are surging again. The increase in daily cases is following the same trajectory or direction as it did at the start of the previous 2 waves. We've seen in other countries the tragic consequences of allowing the virus to spread unchecked. The Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19 has therefore recommended that the country urgently implement further restrictions to limit the increase in infections. It bases this recommendation on the sustained increase in new cases in the last 14 days, increased hospital admissions in almost all provinces, and an increase in the proportion of COVID tests that are positive. Further restrictions are necessary to ensure that health facilities are not overwhelmed and that lives that could be saved are not lost. Delaying the spread of the virus is especially important now to allow as many people as possible to be vaccinated before the third wave reaches its peak. These recommendations have been discussed at the National Coronavirus Command Council, and earlier today we had further discussions with our premiers, our mayors of metros, and traditional leaders in the President's Coordinating Council. Based on these discussions, Cabinet has therefore decided the country should be placed on adjusted alert level 2 with effect from tomorrow. This means that the hours of curfew will start at 11 p.m. and end at 4 a.m. It also means that non-essential establishments like restaurants, bars, and fitness centers will need to close by 10 p.m. This is to allow their employees and patrons to travel home before the start of the curfew. It also means that all gatherings will be limited to a maximum of 100 people indoors and 250 people outdoors. Where the venue is too small to accommodate these numbers with appropriate social distancing, then no more than 50% of the capacity of the venue may be used. This includes religious services, political events and social gatherings, as well as restaurants, bars, taverns, and similar places. Several important measures remain in place. It remains mandatory, that is compulsory, for every person to wear a face mask that covers their nose and mouth at all times when in public spaces. It should be remembered that it is a criminal offense not to do so. The owners and managers of public buildings, centers, shops, restaurants, taxis, and buses all have a responsibility to ensure that people on their premises or in their vehicles wear masks, and that the appropriate social distancing measures are put in place.